Alright, good afternoon. It's Central Illinois weather, or Andrew here, and today we're going to be talking about the potential for a multi-day severe weather event striking portions of the Midwest, but mainly the plains. Here's a little look at our surface map looks like right now. I'm just gonna put the SPC right here. Currently we have kind of a cold front out here in the northeast. That's bringing them some isolated snow shower activity, mixed precipitation. We have critical fire weather being a possibility across portions of the high plains here and the desert southwest over here, along with the severe weather system that's going to be moving into the plains for tomorrow's event, which we'll talk about in a second here. We also have an area of thunderstorms that's going to be possible today. We could see a stronger one in Texas, though that chance has been decreasing as the SPC removed the marginal risk. Tomorrow, a small area of severe weather is going to be possible from Kansas to southwest Missouri into Oklahoma as a conditional risk for very large hail. A couple tornadoes and damaging wind gusts will exist. Beyond that, there's going to be potential for isolated large hail up all the way up into Illinois, Missouri, and Iowa there. Maybe Nebraska, Kansas as well, or Arkansas. And maybe down in Texas, there could be some isolated hail, but probably not. A large area of thunderstorms is going to be possible, along with a kind of a boundary right here as well. Day 3, we're probably going to see a complex severe weather setup evolve, with potential for some isolated strong to severe storms along a bunch of convergence boundaries here in Oklahoma, Texas, southwest Kansas, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. Here's the fronts map. Here's what future radar could look like. We're going to have a triple point tomorrow set up, and we should see a couple isolated supercells fire along, or around 0Z, kind of this general area. And those will track off southeast, as it'll be a northwest flow event. And then Friday, we'll probably see some thunderstorms develop along the dry line, surface boundary kind of complex there during the evening, or Thursday. Here's what the setup looks like at 12Z Friday. We have a couple areas of strong low pressures that are developing and are expected to rapidly deepen. A large dry line that's going to be centered across portions of the central United States, and this is going to leave way to potential for a pretty big severe weather day across portions of the plains, including kind of areas like here. Not New Mexico, but kind of something like this maybe. We'll have to really see what happens. But a large area in the plains could get affected. And then Saturday, severe weather is looking possible along the low pressure in kind of North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota here, and then down the dry line / cold front combo from Iowa, Nebraska, all the way down to Texas there. So there's going to be a couple areas on Saturday to watch too. Sunday, isolated stronger storms cannot be ruled out along the cold front across portions of the Great Lakes region, maybe extending down into the plains as well as isolated severe weather is possible. Monday and Tuesday, we really don't have an idea of what's going to happen. Maybe some stronger storms, maybe not, but we're not really going to talk about that much in this video. Very heavy rain is expected across the plains over the next few days, which will help with the drought, mainly the Ozarks. A lot of heavy rain into Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas. This is going to lead way to some excessive rain. Oh, wait, no, there's no excessive rain probabilities. I was about to say that. But here's our day 2 convective outlook. We have a large marginal risk surrounding the slight risk. We have a slight in Kansas, southwest Missouri, northwest Arkansas, and a lot of central Oklahoma. We have Missouri, Kansas, Arkansas, northern Texas, and Illinois, and a marginal. Portions of Illinois, and a marginal. 2% tornado probabilities, as well as severe weather possible across Oregon. Forgot to mention that. 5% wind across Oregon with a 15 wind over here, and 15 hail. I expect this to become SIG'd some point tomorrow. Kind of surprised they haven't already done that. Day 3, a couple isolated strong to severe storms are going to be possible from a line from Kansas City to Lincoln, down just east of Colby, just east of Garden City, Dodge City area, down to Woodward, Oklahoma, and into Wichita. A conditional setup for a few supercells is possible, and all hazards are going to be possible if we do get storms to fire. On the day 4 rate, we have a day 4 15% from places like South Dakota all the way into Kansas. I do expect this to be a large slight from Texas all the way into South Dakota with the next update. There will probably also be a marginal extending into portions of the Missouri and Mississippi River valleys as a warm front will exist and be a focus point for maybe some isolated strong storms there. Now let's start ourselves off here with the wrap. This is the 15Z run of the wrap. The 21Z is running right now. And we'll start ourselves off with the photograph map from that Cameron Nixon made. So, there we go. So we can see here Kind of getting into the midday hours. Today we might see a couple strong storms today, but really nothing too serious. Tomorrow we see hotographs really start to enlarge, and as we get into the afternoon hours, we can see a large belt of instability kind of start to be present across this area with enlarged photographs as well. And places in Kansas might see a few supercells fire, maybe down into Oklahoma. So here's a sounding just northeast of Oklahoma City, and that's one near Wichita. Here's the sounding that's near Wichita as it loads, and it's pretty significant. A very large photograph, classic northwest flow photograph. Decent instability. Your ML parcel is 2,300, which is pretty good. Along with some pretty steep lapse rates. Now, the storms could be outflow dominant at times due to decape of 1,000 joules per kilogram, which could limit the tornado potential, but I will not be surprised if we get a 5% tornado risk upgrade. We have good mid-level shear as well, which will help out with the tornado potential, and I do think the low-level shear is going to be just low enough where you can get significant hail production out of these storms too. As we get into the evening hours, we see that cold front kind of crash down. Let's see if the wrap actually develops anything. Very strong forcing, so I do think we'll get supercells from a large area that'll just be very isolated because they're forming on that kind of dry line cold front combo. And again, these are some impressive soundings. Steep lapse rates aloft, which will contribute to hail. Big time photographs, which will contribute to some tornado potential. And then storm movements tomorrow are going to be southeast. Look at that. Southeast at around 25-30 miles per hour, so they're going to be manageable for storm chasing. And I do think there's potential for motherships too. I've seen motherships really created out of those photographs before. Now, a limiting factor is that the 850 millibar winds are more over Illinois and Missouri, which could limit some of the severe potential across Oklahoma. It really depends how far east the LLJ gets. And it also depends how far west the overall system at 500 millibar gets. But I do think this area in here is probably going to be the most favorable, as you have the best overlap kind of generally in here. Places like Joplin, Tulsa, Wichita, Kansas, just south of Kansas City. That's going to be the main area. I think that's where you could see a 5% Tor upgrade, probably some Sig Hail upgrade as well. And there's kind of your dew point map. Mid-60s, across the large area. Then your Theta E gets into the 330K. Or Calvin. So here's a look at the NAM 3 kilometer over the next few days. We'll see some showers and thunderstorms tonight across Oklahoma, and then it's going to clear out. We get a few isolated supercells to develop off the 3 kilometer. Would you look at that? It does not do this very often, so it's intriguing. It's like a forecast sounding kind of just southeast of Oklahoma City there, right next to one of those supercells that the 3 kilometer fires, and we'll take a look at it and dissect it here. So there we go. It's a bit capped at this point. So I think maybe mainly large hail. Pretty big photograph to support tornado potential, but it's elevated due to the fact that we have an inversion at around 850 millibars. Now here's a look at the 18Z NAM. Let's first kind of look at this synoptically and kind of pick out the system as it moves across the central US. So here's our kind of player for tomorrow there. It's a huge system kind of across the northern United States with a little bit of energy down here and just enough to get a spark for severe weather. Then we see that kind of move up, and we see another piece of energy kind of come in there for Thursday. I do think there will be isolated severe potential Thursday. Here's a look at what the NAM 3 kilometer shows on reflectivity. Don't trust this all, but we get a few isolated supercells to develop late Thursday afternoon along a boundary, and this could be where we could see a focal point for a few supercells tomorrow, or not tomorrow, Thursday afternoon along kind of a triple point boundary intersection area. Now, looking at the synoptics, there's not going to be any 500 millibar flow, but once you get to 850 millibar, you're going to see a stronger area of flow. And looking at forecast soundings overall, I do think large hail is going to be our main threat again. Elevated storm modes are going to be possible given the huge cap right there. Steep lapse rates aloft and high decape will be favorable for damaging wind and hail potential. Now, here's a look at Friday, and 850 millibar wise, it gets really nuts late at night, but let's just go to 500 millibar and kind of look and see how the system ejects in. bang, it ejects at like 3 to 6Z into the plains, and we probably get supercells to erupt late at night, and then they congeal into linear segments. So this would be your kind of classic high plains overnight tornado outbreak scenario if the NAM would happen. Kind of get a line of storms kind of down here, maybe into the Texas Panhandle too. Now, it really depends when these storms are going to form. Based off the NAM, we have around 0Z, we see some areas uncapped, especially Texas and Oklahoma Panhandle right here, and Nebraska along the triple point uncapped. So I do think those two areas are going to be the first to go. We also have to watch further southwest along the warm front here, as some areas, the areas that do get briefly uncapped, will have potential to produce a couple isolated supercells along the warm front. Looking at composite indices, I do not do this very often, but looking at them, we can see that our 3-kilometer EHI peaks out at the triple point in Nebraska there, and really maxes out right there. Very high in environment takes place across that area. As we get overnight, we can see the higher end environment really start to peak in all along the dry line at 3Z. We can see a large area of severe potential existing from Illinois and Indiana all the way back through Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado, even Nebraska, South Dakota, along that triple point. You see the triple point has maxed out parameters, and this area along the dry line starts to get kind of maxed out too. Now, let's go more in depth and look at Cameron Nixon's photograph map again that he has in College of DuPage. We'll go to 0Z. So, here's 21Z, you see the warm front lifting, and then there's 0Z. The photographs get big across central Nebraska. We'll take a sighting in central Nebraska. We'll also take one there near Amarillo. So here's the Nebraska one. So you're not going to have enough moisture with this sounding to do anything tornadic. We have a 30 degree difference, and that's going to be a big player. Now this Texas sounding is really good. And probably a sounding more down here is probably going to be more favorable and more suited for tornadic development. And yeah, that's exactly the rate. Your dew point depressions aren't so high. Now, with the NAM, we can see it's probably the better environment. It's probably north of the sector in northern Nebraska. But we do see a pretty good environment starting to set up there, kind of in central, kind of this area here. And I do think storms are going to be possible to form. It's going to be a bit hard, but I do think they're possible. Looking at the vorticity map, we don't have much vorticity until 3Z. With every single target, except for the triple point. So I think the triple point will probably fire 21Z in central Nebraska, and then move up into northern Nebraska, into the southern South Dakota area, and have long tracking supercell potential with it. And then we can see here, there's a lot of instability, but we're waiting for that jet energy, and it comes in place at 3Z. So I think that's when we get widespread dryline initiation, is probably 3Z. And the profiles look good on the NAM. We have a large area of supercell potential with 3Z, like I already mentioned, off the NAM. And looking at 500 millibar, you can see the jet kicks in at that point. We also have the stronger vorticity kick in at that point. 850 millibar, vertical velocity is pretty good. Gets that to tip in. And we also see our 850 millibar dew points. It's not dry. It's a little dry earlier in the day, but you get a surge of moisture at 3Z off the NAM that really kicks us in, and you have a good amount of 250 millibars here too. We can see, looking at our Mixler cape, we can see it's sort of capped. It's not super capped though. And 60, it actually breaks a bit more. 1 kilometer helicity is nearing off the chart. It's not quite there. We have 350, which is very favorable. Our low-level lapse rates are pretty good for being later at night. Means a well mixed boundary layer, 7, and then mid-levels are kind of 8 Celsius per kilometer there. And a look at our photograph map at 3Z, and it's just widespread nuts. It's kind of western Kansas. We'll take a sounding there, and we'll take one kind of in the Texas Panhandle too. Western Kansas, and holy crap, huge photograph, huge photograph. This is threading the line of being elevated, not quite elevated. Huge amounts of instability. Good amount of lapse rates as well. D-cape is a little bit high, which could mean outflow dominant storms. We'll have to keep it in mind. Good 3-cape. Really good shear overall, except the upper levels, but that's more of the cyclical nature. And Texas gets a little capped at that point. 6Z. We can see here another still large favorable environment for tornadoes is going to exist if we have a QLCS or really just areas of supercells kind of in here. And we can kind of look at this and we can kind of just see. We'll take a sounding just east of the Garden City area, I believe, or oh no, Garden City's further south, but northeast Kansas, and again, pretty good soundings. It is a little bit convectively contaminated, so I will grab another sounding by looking at reflectivity and kind of sorting that one out. So we'll get a sounding right here. So it was probably convectively contaminated because I got it like on the perfect position on the low pressure. Here's one that's not convectively contaminated. There's a lot of veer back veer, which the NAM typically does veer back veer. It has a bias towards that, I've noticed. It does it more than any model. Huge amounts of 3 cape. Well mixed boundary layer for sure. 60 on 70. A little bit of a stable surface right here, which could hinder it. Lack cloud layer shear as well. But pretty good sounding overall for being later at night. Now the GFS is a bit different. With it, we can see here, we get a couple isolated dryline storms of fire, and again, it has a similar solution, but this time it's not as robust as the NAM solution. If we're looking at the 3 kilometer EHI parameter, it's more robust during the night, and it's placed a lot more differently. The NAM is a lot slower than the GFS with this system, which is very interesting to see. The NAM is about 100 miles slower. It has the event a lot further southwest. It has that triple point at 0Z in north central Nebraska, while a lot of the other models have it further northeast, and some of them don't. We can see it kind of maxes out over there. We'll take a sounding there in a second, but surface-based cape is pretty capped, and it's capped really throughout the whole atmosphere with this thing. Good 850 millibars. Your 500 millibars are still lacking behind. The GFS just turns on the jets with your surface low, which it typically does that. It is uncapped at 21Z, and we can take a sounding there and see what it looks like in northern Kansas, and then we can take one in the Rapid City area as well. We can just look at this, and you can see that it's really capped. That is in Kansas, not very good, and not very suited for tornado potential. So, yeah. Now, once we get toward that 0Z time frame, you can just look at this and see here. Not so great either. So I think the GFS just is not looking as good as some of the other models are. Now, Oklahoma has severe potential on Saturday as well. We'll have to watch that, but the newest GFS runs have been pretty capped with it. 500 millibar still looks pretty good. 850 millibar looks decent. Overall looks pretty good. Now, just see that trough kind of move in, and then we get the long range pattern where it's quiet for a while. Maybe something else in like early May, but we'll have to see. Here's a look at like the aerial wide photograph map. Here's a look at what the Euro has at 500 millibar. Trough gets yeeted up there. Dew points wise, the Euro mixes them out, like really heavy time mixes them out. You can just see here, 15Z, it get mixed out. Now, it's not as bad as the GFS, but we can definitely see it gets mixed out. The warm front still looks really good in like Iowa area in Illinois, so we could see some warm front supercells as the Euro panned out. Then the next day looks really good across kind of Kansas, Iowa, Oklahoma, even up into the triple point up here. Looks really good in kind of that South Dakota, North Dakota area. And yeah, that's not bad. So I do think probabilities could get added for this. We'll have to wait and see. SREF, 500 millibar. We can see kind of how that trough zooms in. And it's pretty similar to the NAM solution, I would have to say. And it has the trough being slower, and it also has the low pressure being slower as well. Looking at the MSLP, it's out in western Nebraska, which is very similar to what the NAM has. Along with that, though, the moisture is a little bit further east. Not so much like the NAM has. It's further east, kind of like the Euro. Looking at the composites, we can see it's not so great, and so we get the 3Z. Sigtor mean is at 2. I've never seen, I don't really see it do that very often this far out, which means this could be a more significant setup. The Supercell composite above 5 is almost maxed out in some areas. This parameter is pretty high, 15% as well. Now, composite Cs are not going to be everything. Looking at your 850 millibar winds, they are extremely strong. Your 500 millibar winds are pretty good, and I think they best overlap kind of in here. I think that's where the area is going to be for dry line initiation. Your triple point is going to be somewhere in here. We really don't know where your triple point initiation is going to be. And the dry line initiation would only happen if we have the NAM solution or the SREF solution right now. I really don't see any other models that show that. That will do it for this one. We're monitoring the potential for a multi-day severe weather sequence, potentially some days where we could get a more significant scenario. We'll have to wait and see, and I'll have more updates out later.